Sunday and almost coming at the end of the month, of course. If you are the kind of person waiting for the smoke, then of course I know it has already hit the sky. And of course, you should be planning now for next month. Now for teachers, the duration to rest is here. So we're almost coming at the end of the term. Now I'm just finishing my duty today. I'm supposed to be at home, but I'm at school, so I'm here to make a video that is focused on styles that have been really bothering students. When I come to check during marking, I am surprised that students cannot identify these styles. So if you are online, stay tuned and you will not regret for having paid attention to what I'm going to share. If you've gone to church, this live stream will be shown on my YouTube, Edutainment for Us. Stay put, be welcome, feel free to ask questions in case there is an area where you need clarification. I'll be switching from my face to the book because there is a good book I wrote. If you have seen it, just raise your hand. Dancing with Poetry. That is a very detailed book, comprehensive mastery in poetry. You know, our series is comprehensive mastery, and then we now get titles for our books. Now you can see the picture tells you a lot that we have to read, we have to recite, we have to, spoken word, sing and all that. So I've written it with Nelson Andai Omunanga, Twenje Priska myself, and then there is Dr. Wanjala Hamala. So let's be on board, discuss these important stylistic devices or poetic devices that really bother a lot of students, because I've seen you mark a poem, you find these styles are there, but students are not getting them. I don't know whether you've observed the same as a teacher, and if you're a parent, you can encourage your child to watch this because they'll benefit from whatever I'm going to share here. Welcome on board. I can see some few people live. I would wish more people come in. I know this is time for church. Hi, whoever is on board, I'm waving to you and I hope you're fine. So, I'm going to focus on image-based styles. Sometimes we call them imagery or figures of speech, right? So, whenever a poem is asked, especially paper 2, you will find that they are asking a student to give poetic devices, or if they ask in comprehension, they may tell them to establish the figure of speech or explain it or show the imagery in a certain sentence. Yeah. Now, guys, if we talk about imagery, we are talking about these styles that affect our 5 senses, namely the sense of taste, yeah, the sense of touch, the sense of smell, the sense of hearing, and the sense of seeing. So when you talk about imagery, figures of speech, we are focusing on these aspects of our 5 senses that we did in class 1, and so we should apply them every time. Now, word pictures could be visual, appealing to the eye, aural, appealing to the ear, tactile, appealing to touch, gustatory, appealing to taste, then olfactory, appealing to smell. Now, for instance, I'm going to read to you a very short poem, and I'll be focusing on it instead of my face so that you be with me. Yeah, so the poem is here. I hope you can see it clearly. They paddle with staccato feet in powder pools of sunlight, small blue busybodies, strutting like fat gentlemen with hands clasped under their shallow tail coats. That's a poem from Pigeons by Richard Kells. Now, when I picked this poem, it was because I considered that it has the senses I've been talking about here. So looking at this poem, of course, we have staccato feet, right? That's a movement. So where do we feel it? Is it by our ear, our eye, our ear, our touch, our taste, or our smell? Of course, when you look at this one, it's more of tactile movement kind of. Then there is in power pools of sunlight, right? So that appeals to our eye because we can see how the sun lights a place. Small blue busy bodies, blue. The color is there, so it is again appealing to the eye, a visual image. Strutting like fat gentlemen, strutting, that one is to the ear. You can hear when somebody struts with hands clasped. So we can have the visual, we can see, yeah, under their swallow-tail coats. So you can have that imagination of what it is. Now, when you look at this poem, Kell uses both metaphors and similes again, away from just the aspect of 5 senses. So we have metaphors such as the fact of staccato feet, right? They paddle with staccato feet. That is appealing to our visual image. Then they have told us strutting like fat gentlemen. That is a simile, right? A comparative aspect that makes us see the similarity between strutting and the fat gentleman. Yeah? Welcome on board. Hi. I can see some waving to me, some, and I'm happy at this. Now, when we look at the third line, we have an auto and we have a visual metaphor. There are blue bodies which are engaging in everything around, looking around at everything and pushing themselves forward. So similarly, we hear the pigeons talk, yeah? And we are told about the mattering aspect, the busy aspect as they give the sense of head movement, yeah, when the birds are walking. Hello, Wolf Chief. Are you saying fat or fat? I'm talking about fat, not fat. Okay? But I'm stand to be corrected. If I'm pronouncing in a wrong way, then thank you for the, inquiry about whether it's fat or fat. Because I know the difference is on the long R, and the other one is we call it what? It's a kind of, sound that is found in words like girl, bird, fur. All right, it is what it is. Sometimes, this is not our native language and we're just trying because we have to communicate anyway. But from my learn, sometimes people understand what you say just because they are looking at it, and that's why I had to show you the poem. Wolf Chief. Okay. Yeah. So then we start with similes. Yeah. So what is a simile? A simile is comparison. Are you from Ghana? No, I don't think I sound Ghanaian, do I? I am from Kenya. Yeah, so I'm not from Ghana, Wolf Chief. My pronunciation doesn't sound like Ghana, does it? Carlos Nunes, hi. Hi. Alex Loga said hola. Which language is that? De donde eres? Okay. Yeah, so I'm from Kenya, and if my pronunciation wouldn't sound like native, forgive me, because I am learning day after day. But I'm proud that at least I can communicate and majority of the people can get what I'm saying. Yeah, so similes. Simile as an image-based style in poetry, it gives a comparison of two items, or two things, or two people indirectly, and there is use of the word as or like. Now, it is a type of figurative language that describes something by comparing it with something else, and therefore, for example, if I say greedy like a hyena, that is a kind of simile. Now, I'm going to show you a simple poem, and I really like this poem because it has a lot of images. Do you eat samosa? Of course. Who wouldn't eat it? But it depends with what is inside. There was a lot of news about people selling samosa with cat meat. Would you take that, Wolf Chief? Okay, so let me show you the poem that I'm focusing on. And of course, I'm going to look at a kind of song by Pink that is just like fire. Now, I like referring to songs because young people love songs, and unlike when you show them written poetry, they wouldn't actually appreciate compared to when you give them a song. Alex Logger says, Desvi What do you mean? Wolf Chief says, I mean potato or beef keema, samosa, of course. Of course I do. I do. Would you send me some samosa then? Okay, so I'm going to show the poem instead of my face so that as I read it, we establish similes together. Ang Play says, hi. Okay, so let me show you the poem. And here it is. Here we go. So just like fire by Pink, I hope light the world up for just one day. Watch this madness, colorful charade. Hey, no one can be just like me anyway. Just like magic, I'll be flying free. I'ma disappear when they come for me. I kick that ceiling, what you gonna say? No one can be just like me anyway, just like fire. Run it, fire. Run it, ah. Just like fire, we came here to run it. So I hope you know that song by Pink. It's an R&B song, and it's a good example of how to teach poetry instead of using the poems themselves, because some students don't actually follow when you give poems, but if you give them songs, then they find it fun. So looking at that poem, how many similes did you find in it? That's my question. I'm waiting for an answer. Wolf Chief, you said you love samosa, right? And I told you give us some. And Play says I'll donate 100. Thank you. You're free to do so. Okay, and Plays again. I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. You know, Wolf Chief began by asking about some words here, and I just hope that everything is okay. Alex Loga, you're communicating. I don't know whether it's Spanish or whichever language it is. De la Volta. Tell me which language this is. Okay, so I hope from your responses you've got about 4 similes, and the first is just like fire. Then the next is just like magic, and again repeated just like fire, just like fire. Now if you go to more poems, like a common poem called An African Thunderstorm by David Rubadiri, if you've read it, you'll find more examples of similes, like a plague of locusts, like a madman chasing nothing, like sinister dark wings. So you'll find such similes. There is another one, clouds wave like tattered flags. Yeah, so I hope by now you know what a simile is. Now, similes are not just used without a reason. A poet has an intention for using similes, and in our poems, for example, similes play the following roles. Number 1, they create compelling visual images. So try to find out exactly what image they are showing. If they are showing an image of how a flag is flying loosely, then say so in an exam. They also emphasize on emotional tones. For example, when you say like a sinister, dark wings, you know, picking sinister and dark, that means that your tone possibly is ironical or you are pessimistic about what you're talking about. The other function of similes is to compare seemingly unlike objects to establish connection, right? So, for example, in this poem, they have said, tossing up things on its tail like a madman chasing nothing. So you can see the comparison of unlike objects here. The tossing, like when the storms come, when the rain is almost coming down, and you can see the wind whirling, and there are things that it's tossing. They are saying that it can be compared to a madman chasing nothing. Are you seeing that comparison? So of course it seemingly compares madman and the wind, and then establish the connection of how crazy the aspect of the coming of the rains or the storms happen in Africa. The last function of similes is that they create a vivid picture of how a person, an object, or an action might appear. Yeah, so you can see how a person might appear, an object or an action. Now, like an example of gathering to perch on hills like sinister dark wings. The wind whistles. So you can see like sinister dark wings. That one is giving us a clear picture of how the pregnant clouds look like, when you're standing by the hill and you're looking at that during the rainy season, right? Yeah. Okay, do you eat pizza? Wolf Chief is just set to talk about meals. How I wish pizza was here, samosa was here, I would be so grateful. Okay, so the next style is metaphors. Metaphors. Now, I'm basing on Alice Underwood's definition, and Alice defines metaphors as figures of speech that describe an object or an action in a way that isn't literally true, but it helps explain an idea or make a comparison. Now, we have a variety of metaphors. Some metaphors are visual, others are standard, others are extended. Now, I want to give you an example. I'll be showing you this because I told you I'll keep showing and also talking about it. Now, I want you to look at this picture, for example, and tell me something that you see here. Yeah? Yeah, did you see this picture right here? All right, so I hope you've seen this. That's a visual metaphor, right? So what do you see? I'll leave that to you. Now let's get to a poem that we will have to read together, and you get to see what I'm talking about here. The poem is overtly long. Buffalo Soldier by Bob Song. Buffalo Soldier, Dread Rasta. There was Buffalo Soldier in the heart of America, stolen from Africa, brought to Africa. Now, if you read this poem, you won't realize it's a song, but I told you I use songs a lot. So I'm going to read it again so that we can see the metaphors in them. Now, as I told you, it's a song, but I'm going to read as a poem. Buffalo Soldier by Bob Marley. Buffalo Soldier, Dreadlock Rasta. There was a buffalo soldier in the heart of America, stolen from Africa, brought to America, fighting on arrival, fighting for survival. I mean it. When I analyze the stench, to me it makes a lot of sense. How the dreadlock Rasta was the buffalo soldier, and he was taken to Africa, brought to America, fighting on arrival, fighting for survival. Yeah, so when we look at this poem, or rather the song, then we see the aspect of metaphor. The buffalo soldier being referred to here is a slave, right? So, of course, buffalo, because Africans were very strong then. Now, they are being referred as soldiers because whatever they went to do in America was something right for America. And, of course, they fought for survival because this is something they are not used to. They were going to a new culture, new place, new situations. So that's why they are referred to as buffalo soldier. Now, the aspect of being taken has also been considered as a metaphor and called stolen, right? So, when you look at the extended aspect of this, then you understand what the metaphor means, right? Now, why do we use metaphors in poems? The function of metaphors is the following. The first one is to communicate the remarkable perspectives, right? Like there's a message that has to be conveyed, a theme that has to be presented, an analogy that has to be pointed out. So the comparison of two phenomena, the buffalo here and the African, that is slave, the comparison without use of as or like, then gives us the remarkable perspective of the strong African who was in chains and could not actually be helped, but was in chains and had to be helped. Now the next is metaphor helps in memorability. Now when you look at metaphors, most times they are outrageous and they help us to memorize or rather recall information. They are rare and unique to our eye, and therefore, whatever they do is when you read it, then you recall more. Like when you talk about this song, Buffalo Soldier, now you remember so much. Everybody who listens to reggae cannot fail to remember Buffalo Soldier as compared to if we say the African slave. You know, you can't recall that. The third function of metaphor is to offer aesthetic purposes. Yeah, so the aesthetic purpose is found in a metaphor because of the beauty in the language. Now, I want you to go to Okot Pipitek's poems. Yeah, like we have the poem about Old Clementine. Yeah, and she talks about the witch getting ready for the night dance. Now, you look at that. The wording is so beautiful, regardless of the choice of words that are negative connotation, you get to have a positive aspect of what they are. The next function of metaphors is that they enhance meaning, right? So you get to see whether they are promoting something or they are bringing it down. Are they justicing or are they, supporting it? The other function of metaphors is to bring ambiguity. There is nothing good like leaving people in suspense, asking what you tried to say. And that is what poets love. Poets don't love people who just give them the clear message, but they want you to interpret for yourself, right? They also provoke critical thinking. So once you see the comparison of words, you'll be debating on what the meaning is and promote the enlightenment of what actually it meant. Sometimes they amplify the ideas because instead of just talking about something as it is, if you use a metaphor, then you're trying to expand the description of the idea. They also create symbolism. I hope you know representation of objects with the other. You remember the picture I showed you? There was a bottle lying down with an item inside. Then there is a cake, a cone with cake. Now when you look at the two, do you see some symbolism, the representation of one in the other? All right. It means possibly both could be used in a wedding, so one can replace the other. The next function of metaphors is to enhance euphemism, right? So you don't want to give specific, explicit information. You just want it to remain less offensive, especially if you're talking about experiences that are erotic, political criticisms and genitals. Then you use such words as erotic, the metaphors. I want you to listen to more songs like I am not a qualified physician. But I can try this injection. You push it in. You see that one? When you look at that song, it has a lot of metaphoric language. That metaphoric language is meant to hide the actual aspects of erotic experience that this singer is giving. And I hope everybody knows what that song means. It's not as it is. Now, the next image we can talk about is personification, which is very common. Now, the problem here, most students confuse personification with other styles. Like they think if you give even animal aspect to human, then you are personifying. No, let me correct that idea today. Personification is only when an object, an idea, or an animal is given human qualities, right? Or feelings. So the human traits are given to an unhuman object. And I want you to look at this. I know most of you love Michael Jackson. May his soul rest in peace. Now we are going to look at this example here, Thriller. And that is a very common soul music song. Yeah, so let me show you the song. Here it goes. It's close to midnight, something evil lurking in the dark. Under the moonlight, you see a sight that almost stops your heart. You try to scream, but terror takes the sound before you make it. You start to freeze as horror looks you right between the eyes. You are paralyzed, right? That's a song that